Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More. I'm outside rental property number 6, which I bought 8 years ago. It's finally ready to rent again. Had a lot of trials and tribulations with this property over the last 6 months. It was slightly trashed by tenants. Then we had it flood after we remodeled it, and now it's finally ready to go again. And ironically, my sister's rental house flooded yesterday, so I thought it was a good time to talk about this one, talk about how that process went, and then also talk about rent rates. So how much has rent gone up since I've owned it? How do we figure out what rent is now? That's something else I want to talk about today as well. And later today, I'll probably go over to my sister's house, see how it looks as well. Maybe shoot another video there. We showed it 2 days ago after the flood had just happened. The cleaners turned off the furnace, the pipes froze, they thawed, and not a good situation, but all the drywall was still in, the floors were still okay. But you actually don't see all the damage until a couple days later, so we'll go check that out. And of course, check out investformore.com. We have lots more information on our flips, rentals, being an agent, all that great stuff. And my new book is completely finished on all my crazy real estate stories. I'm just waiting for the final touches, the cover to be made, all that great stuff. But let's check out the house and see how it looks. All right, so this had hardwood. Whoops, that's loud. Kind of the original hardwood floors, just like my sister's house has now. And so they were completely buckled and warped after all the water got onto them. So you might have been able to save them if you dried it out and waited for a few months, but they weren't the prettiest either. So it actually looks a lot better, I think, with the LVT vinyl flooring we put down. And then there's a weird kind of transition there too that looks a lot better as well. And I'll have videos linked below of the flood, all of that, and my sister's house below. And also this is one of the first videos I ever did back in 2012, I think, on YouTube. So I'll link to that as well. And back then I bought this property for $115,000. And it's funny, in that video you can hear me saying, oh, I'm paying $115,000 for this house, which is a little more than I like to pay, but it's in better shape than most of the rentals I buy. Now this house is worth $400,000. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to go back to the days of paying $115,000 for a property that's not in too bad of shape. But those are gone probably forever. We are still waiting on the fridge. One thing we're very frustrated with right now is stuff is all back ordered. It's so hard to get things still. So we're able to get the stove, the dishwasher, but our fridge is back ordered. So we'll probably still list it for rent. While I'm here, I'll take pictures of everything and list it on Facebook, Zillow, maybe Craigslist, although it's kind of becoming one of the less used resources for renting properties. And then just tell people, hey, you can rent it now, but you might not have a fridge until a week or two. So at least we can get, or somebody can, sign a lease now, but they won't have the actual move until later. So a little frustrating, but that's part of the business right now. We also did carpet. So we normally use Fireworks from Home Depot, that carpet, and then we have a guy who installs our carpet, Brian. He's awesome. And he actually was able to get us even cheaper carpet, and he stores it at his own shop. So that's been a nice little change of things. We're always looking for ways to improve things, do things cheaper. So it's easy to spend a lot of money in real estate, that's for sure. But all of this whole first level was flooded. These were all hardwood as well, the bedrooms too. So unfortunately, we just had to take all of it out and put down the vinyl out here, and then the carpet in the bedrooms. And we're in Colorado where we have cold winters, so people actually usually appreciate having carpet in the bedrooms. I know a lot of people always ask why we do that, but it's very, you have to be in tune with your market and climate and how things work in your area. It is definitely not the same everywhere you go. And then here's our bathroom, which also is not amazing. And one of my pet peeves that I didn't realize until I got here, right? You turn on the light and the fan automatically comes on. I wish it was separate, but it's a rental. It should be okay. And so it'll be decent. All right. Now, the basement was where it flooded the worst. And we had just gotten done. Oh, that's something else. Somebody asked about the cabinets being weird. And they are weird, and we noticed this. and I don't know if we'll change this or not, but that door was hung upside down, and it's the wrong door because you can see up here, they put the wrong door up there too. So our contractors mixed up the doors when they installed them, and that's what's going on there. So maybe it's a cool, neat design thing. Maybe it'll catch on and be the in thing to have different doors on your cabinets that are hung different ways. I think it's pretty cool. So anyway, here's the basement where it flooded pretty bad, and we had to remove a lot of the sheetrock and drywall. And like I said, we just almost finished remodeling the house, just like my sister's house, where her house had bed bugs, was trashed by tenants, was just about finished remodeling. The cleaners were actually there, so it was finished, and then it flooded, so she's got to go back and do it again. So our insurance did cover the cost to repair, which was like, they gave us $22,000, I think. And honestly, I think we spent less than that after the flood, because we have our own people who could do the remediation, pull out the water, do all of that. But if you're using a remediation company, you would probably pay at least that, maybe even more, because they're very, very expensive. So that's always something to think about. If you got your own people who can do it, it's just going to be a lot cheaper than an actual remediation company. But the insurance paid it for us. That was nice, because there can be issues, you know, if a property's vacant, if it doesn't have renters in it, sometimes insurance companies can give you problems. But, oh, that window well's ugly. You always find things. They did pay, and my sister's, you know, hopefully her insurance will pay as well for hers. You just never know on those things. That's also a good reason why you should have, right, if you're flipping a house, you should make sure you have flip insurance, not renter's insurance. And if you're renting a house, you shouldn't have flipper's insurance, but usually house flipping insurance is more expensive than rental insurance. And people try, you know, they try to say it's a rental, but if you never rented it, it was always a flip, you know, and something happens, the insurance company could come back and say, oh, we're not covering this. This was never a flip or never a rental. So got to be careful there as well. You can see here, we laid down that same floor here. Very bad down here. The ceiling was bubbling and just water everywhere. So we had to replace lots of that. Another pet peeve of mine, the light switch for the bedroom is on the outside of the bedroom. But again, it is a rental. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it still will rent very quickly and be a decent house for somebody. And that's something else I want to talk about here too, is rental rates. So I said before, right, it rented for I think about $1,200 when I first bought it. And this house has had a lot of issues. It's had a few tenants who didn't pay, who we had to get rid of, some who somewhat trashed it. I think we had a sewer backup in it a few years ago. It's still a great property because, like I said, I bought it for $115 and it's worth like $400,000 now, and it's cash flowed the whole time, but it's had a lot more issues than most of our properties. And this is a door, the same door we had before, that was super dirty, but it cleaned up pretty decent, so that's good to see. And then I think last we had it rented, it was $1,700 or $1,700. We'd rented it a couple of years ago for that. And now I think market rents are around $2,100 or $2,200. So that might seem crazy to some people, like, oh my God, like people can't afford rentals. How can people afford to live when rents are that high? But if the house is worth $400,000, rents kind of have to be that high for it to make sense for any landlords to buy rentals or rent out single family homes. Because I stopped buying rentals in 2016, single family rentals, moved to commercial rentals at that point, because prices had gotten so high and rents had not kept up with the expenses and mortgage costs. You know, it was just very hard to make money. Now we're finally starting to see rents catch up to those prices. They're still, you know, it's not a $1,200 rent on a $115,000 purchase, but at the same time, interest rates are much lower right now, which helps, although that could change, like as a lot of us have been hearing. And the higher the price point, usually the lower the rent relative to the cost of the house. So you very rarely see any houses rent for $4,000 that are worth $400,000. That just doesn't happen. But $2,100, $2,200, it starts to make sense to buy rentals, especially if you're finding good deals. And what that does is it equalizes the market, right? So people love to blame landlords, flippers for destroying the housing market. We don't destroy the housing market. There have always been flippers and landlords. It's not like it's a new thing where we just came out of the woodwork the last few years and caused the housing market to jump up. There were flippers before, during, after the last crash. For decades, there's been flippers. For centuries, there's been landlords and flippers, so they've always been around. And we don't drive prices. We don't set the prices, which a lot of people think we do. And how it works is supply and demand. So, right, if I have a rental property and I want to rent it, I don't just make up an arbitrary price that I know will make me money, right? If I buy a property for $400,000 and I say, oh, my costs are $3,000 a month, I can't just go rent it for $3,500 a month. I have to look at the market. I go on Zillow, I go on Facebook Marketplace, sometimes Craigslist, although not as much anymore as I said, and I see what other similar properties are renting for. I see what's a 5-bedroom, 2-bath renting for with a 1-car garage, if I can find it. If not, something similar, close to it, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And I see what those properties are renting for. And I look at as many as I can. I don't take the highest one. Sometimes I'll look at the lowest one, but I usually want to see kind of like the low to mid-level of what those properties are renting for. And that tells me what the market is. It doesn't matter what my costs are. It doesn't matter what my mortgage payment is. It doesn't matter what my taxes are, what I bought it for. What matters is what other properties are renting for and what people can buy or rent that's already on the market. That's how rents are determined. And that's exactly how rents or values are determined as well if we're flipping properties, right? If I flip a house and buy it for $200,000 and I spend $50,000 on repairs and $30,000 on other costs, and I need to sell it for $300,000 to make an okay profit, I don't just arbitrarily set the price at $300,000. I have to look at comps, see what else is selling, what's similar, what's for sale, and that determines what I can sell it for. Maybe I can sell it for $350 and make more money. Maybe I can only sell it for $270 and break even, right? I can't just set the market. What sets the market is supply and demand, how many other houses are for sale, and what other buyers can buy. Because if I price it too high, nobody will buy it. It'll actually sell for less because it'll be stagnant. People wonder what's wrong with it. Same thing goes for rentals. If I price it too high, people won't buy it. They'll go somewhere else. So what really is determining of prices is the cost to build, how much it costs to build new properties when there aren't enough out there, which is the market we're in right now. And that keeps rising up and up and up and up because the supplies are getting more. Supplies are taking longer to get, as we just said. Labor is increasing significantly. The cost of wages are going up significantly, despite what you might hear. Wages are going up higher than inflation for the last 3-4 decades. So stuff keeps getting more and more expensive. Land gets more expensive, and the counties and cities make it harder and harder and harder to build. They make that process take longer. It's harder to develop land. All of that makes building much more expensive. Building becomes more expensive. It pulls up all of the other properties. And when you pull up all the values of all the other properties, it pulls up the rents of all the other properties eventually. So in a nutshell, rents are finally starting to catch up to some of these values because landlords like me stopped buying single-family rentals. We couldn't make money with them at the current rents. So if we stop buying rentals and sell some of our rentals, which I've been doing, that takes more and more supply out of the system. The less supply there is, the higher rents are for the supply you can find. And that bumps prices up. Now that prices are starting to bump up, I bet you we'll see more investors start to buy single-family rentals again, come back into the market and invest in that area. We'll see more of an equilibrium of rentals and things will stabilize. On the other side, when more investors are buying single-family homes, it takes away stock from people who want to purchase. And that can push the purchase prices back up again because there's less properties to buy. As you can see, it's a never-ending cycle. And the only way to stop that cycle is not to get rid of landlords, not to get rid of flippers, but to build more houses. That's it. And that's why prices are based on cost to build, because people look at what they can buy new versus what's available. And if what they can buy new is better and cheaper, they'll buy new. And if it's not, they'll buy old ones and keep pushing those prices up. So that is my soapbox for the market, determining rents, values, all of that, how the whole economics of housing works. It is not simply people deciding what to charge for houses, and that's what it is. It's a very complicated system, and mostly if you can build more cheaper, prices are going to get lower. If you can't, prices are going to get higher unless you get into a situation of oversupply where there's way too many houses like the last crash because they built tons of houses and had tons of foreclosures. And I don't think that's happening for many, many years. There's only been 4 crashes in the history of the US. 2008, the 1930s, 1870s, 1830s, and all of them were caused by horrible lending, massive overbuilding, and massive supply, which we don't have right now. In fact, I think the closest economic situation we have right now is the 1970s, where we had massive inflation, interest rates rose from 7 to 13%. There were 2 recessions, 2 oil crises, crazy economics going on, and during that time period, housing prices tripled. They went from about $20,000 to $60,000 median price in the 1970s, all while that was happening. So recessions, interest rates, bad economies can do lots of damage, but they don't mean housing prices will crash. And in fact, sometimes they can rise during that time as well. So, all right, that's the house. We'll try and get it listed for rent here too. I'll try to remember to take pictures after this video. And love your support. Love if you hung in here till the end. This is kind of a long video staring at walls. Sorry about that. And, like I said, check out investformore.com. We'll have many more videos coming up on our rentals, flips, the liquor store, mini mart I bought, the complex finishing up, all that great stuff. And of course, we're always buying new properties as well too. All right, take care.